Hey, good Tuesday morning, everybody. Welcome into the Volquest podcast. I'm Eric Kane, alongside Austin Price, Grant Ramey, and Brent Hubbs. Fall camp is upon us. A lot going on right now. We got observations, we got highlights, got photo galleries, we got conversations happening on the General's quarters right now. No better place to be with us than right now over at Volquest.com. So much to offer as fall camp continues. Fall camp week 1 is in the books, right? It was a week ago today that there was Media Day, the unofficial start of fall camp, and of course, practice number 1 was last Wednesday, but we've seen now 4 practices in the books. The 5th practice is coming up later this morning, depending on, I guess, what time you listen to this. What have we learned so far? And it's not going to be much. I understand that because, again, we haven't seen a full padded practice just yet. But Brent Hubbs, what have we learned so far about Tennessee football 1 week into fall camp?
Well, I think we've learned that there is quarterback competition. We don't know exactly what that looks like because I think it's hard to evaluate just routes versus air. I mean, I think which one of the quarterbacks throw it better when there's more people on the field. So I don't think we've learned a lot about that. I think Saturday's a big day for the quarterback battle. But I do think we've learned some other stuff, for me in particular. One, they're razor thin at receiver, and that was exposed this week. 2, I think the Sam Pendleton to center discussion is a very real discussion as they look for their best 5. I'm not saying Satterwhite's out of the center race, but I do think there's a real thought of Pendleton at center with Jesse Perry, Sham Umaroff battling at guard, but they're clearly cross-training across the board. And as expected, that offensive line looks good. I think the most maybe impressive position to date on offense has been the tight end position. And then defensively, it's been all about fundamentals. I mean, it's hard to get a gauge to me when you watch other than they look good, they look the part running around, but it's a ton of fundamental work for defense.
AP, have we gotten behind the whole Blurgate situation yet? I just want to get that out in the open. Have you done any investigative journalism?
I'm over talking about that nonsense. Anybody with a reasonable thought process can tell you that ball's not coming from the blurred object that's running towards the receivers down the field with a defender guarding him. Either way, I will say this. I think Hubbs' first point was the best point. What we found out was there's no room for any kind of slip-ups in terms of health for the receivers. I mean, it is so small. The couple of ankles, and man, they could be in a really, really tough spot. And no matter what, Radarius Jackson and Travis Smith, they better be guys. I mean, I know they made some plays in the spring and they look pretty, but there's been a lot of guys that made plays in the spring and looked pretty in pads, not factored. Look at Mike Matthews a year ago, didn't factor. There's no choice for those kids. They have to factor this year and factor quick. So that's the biggest thing I take away is that freshmen, especially at receiver, have got to be real playmakers for this team.
I think my biggest takeaway, Grant, and Brent mentioned it, was probably the tight ends. And again, they're running around in shorts and jersey and helmets, and they put the pads on the last couple of days. Full pads is coming, don't get me wrong. And, of course, the intensity, the pads popping a little bit, picked up once the shoulder pads came on. But when you get into full pads and, 11 on 11, especially in these scrimmages, I mean, you're going to have to do the inline, hand in the dirt, H-back, all the different things and the intricacies that come with playing tight end in this offense. We know Miles Kitselman can do it. We know Ethan Davis has been a 2.5-year work in progress. He's made a lot of strides. Man, I am so intrigued to see where Desan Brame is in that regard because, again, completely new to him. The parallels to Ethan Davis are very much real from Desan Brame to Ethan Davis coming out of high school. Brame has put on about 30 pounds, he told us the other day, since arriving on campus. He's looked fantastic. I think Jack Van Dorsler's looked good. The tight end position has been very impressive. 4 guys that legit I think are some dudes. How many can actually play, and what do they look like with, full pads, inline, all that and more this week and next week? I'll be really intrigued to see if the momentum for the tight end position continues this week.
I almost wore red before this podcast, and then I realized that Eric would have to blur me out if I did wear red for this entire thing. So I put on a white shirt so I could be a full participant. I mean, I don't have a ton of takeaways from camp because we haven't really seen anything. I haven't seen anything. Just the zip on the ball from Aguilar and Merklinger, I think, has been kind of impressive to me. They both got strong arms. They both got quick releases. I think they're very similar, it looks like, in the routes on air, the way they play the game, the way they throw the ball. They've been fairly accurate. I know there have been some drops and there's been some sloppiness, but I've been impressed with those. So I think George McIntyre looks like a freshman, a little bit of a slower, kind of more labored, taller release, I guess, from him. But just watching those two quarterbacks, I would assume it's a legit competition, because when you sit there and watch them in routes on air, it looks like they're, you're trying to split hairs. You're trying to figure out who's the better quarterback among those two. I think I'm surprised Tennessee fans haven't tried to kind of dissect why is Merklinger wearing the GoPro on his helmet and Joey Aguilar was not.
Oh, don't worry. We had some people mad at me because I didn't mention who was wearing the GoPro in the practice observations. I didn't think that was very much a big
What day
deal.
was that? Was that Saturday morning? I can't even remember what they were doing last week if either of them had on the GoPro.
Well, they change it around every day. Merklinger had it Saturday. Aguilar had it Sunday. Arion Carter had it defensively on Saturday. I think T-Lander had it Sunday. They all move it around. Obviously, they use it to watch tape. They use it for some virtual reality stuff. But, yes, it's very much a talking point.
Well, whoever wears it, just start the rumor that they don't trust the eyes on this quarterback because they have to have a GoPro to go back and double-check what he's looking at.
I think the other thing for me out of week one is kind of the steady increase with the Boo Carter stuff in terms of, day one, he had a jersey, he was just kind of running around, and he's to the helmet, and then maybe he's got on some spider gear. Like, I'm a little surprised, I guess, at how fast that seems to be progressing. I don't think it means he's back next week or this week. I don't know what that timetable looks like, but I'm honestly, I thought Tennessee would just keep him out of a jersey and he'd just run around in a T-shirt, so nobody would even know where he was at or what he was doing. But maybe they wanted everybody to see that he was doing, a bunch of extra stuff on the side, or maybe they're trying to get him through the acclimation period.
There you go.
Or when when he decides he's back, he does not have to go 2 or 3 days in non-pads and that type of thing. Maybe that's it, but I'm a little surprised he's done as much as we've seen him do in terms of progressing towards, pads and being ready to practice whenever they decide that he's back.
I think Hub's hit the nail on the head. I think that they are getting him through the acclimation stuff. That way, whenever they deem him ready to come back and join the team in full, he doesn't have to sit there in the jersey for a couple of days and then go, just tops for a couple of days. They can just go the whole shebang. That's my take. And it would make sense, right? Like you do enough to get him through the minor things. That way, whenever you're ready for him to totally rejoin you, he's just there.
I'm surprised that we've seen him, period, considering we only see the first 20 minutes of practice. Why not just bring him out and let him do his thing as soon as we get kicked out of there? It's kind of been surprising to me.
How many times have coaches over the years held guys out until we leave?
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
But again, are you trying to show that he's doing punishment stuff? Is that part of what you're doing to let the media and the fans know that he's not at Club Med, right? Like he's not just kicked back, over a period of time. He's on time. He's doing everything he's supposed to do, so that when Josh Heupel is asked about it on Saturday morning after the scrimmage, his reply can be, "Well, you guys have seen him out there. He's been out there every day when we started." Da 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 da.
That's a good point.
I still think the question for me with Boo is, how many days does he have to stack before you're moving towards him being back? Like, how many is there in your mind, if you're the leadership council and the coach, do you need to see a week of him being on time where he's supposed to be? Is it 2 weeks, 10 days? Like, what do you have kind of in the back of your mind that, hey, we've got to do this. He's got to do this many times. Or I've got in my head he needs to be like this for a couple of weeks before we're thinking about letting him back? Or do you even not have a date in your head, and it's just kind of you continue to talk to leadership council, Eric, and then whenever you feel like, hey, we need him, he's back, he's done everything he needs to do, let's go play with him.
Yeah, and like I'm not on that leadership council. I don't know what's going on. I don't know what their expectations are, so I want to make that abundantly clear. But I think that the last thing you said makes the most sense. I mean, it's a day-by-day thing. So many times if you miss a day or two of practice, like it's not that big of a deal. Ooh, nice. I don't have to be out here in 98 degrees and helmet and shoulder pads. This is kind of nice and everything. But the more and more you miss, and specifically like the start of fall camp, it's like, okay, start getting that itch. It's like, okay, I need to be out there. Like I'm truly missing something. Of course, Boot Carter is one of the most talented guys on the team. He's going to play, when he's back and full go and everything. But I think it needs to be, in my opinion, right? I mean, if I'm on the leadership council, I'd view it like a week to week deal, like to where it's like he's truly feeling like he's missing something, and maybe that's what they're going to do. But I think it's more of a day by day thing. Like I would assume there's probably no date in mind, but who knows? We're not on that council. But as Josh Heupel's pointed out, I mean, certainly it's a Josh Heupel deal and a leadership council deal. They're kind of working hand in hand with this whole situation.
You got to see it to believe it, to quote Brent Hubbs. Like, it's one thing to stand in front of your team and address the situation, and you can kind of get a read on if he's being genuine and honest, and get a read on it there. But show it to me instead of just talking about it. Let me see it. And I think it's once you see it and you get more of a feel for it in person and through his actions, then you go from there.
Is there going to be true separation at the quarterback position this week? I'm not saying it's starters named or anything, Austin, but I mean, the pads are going to be on, full padded practices, scrimmage coming up on Saturday. And yeah, I know there were some drops and some sloppiness and routes versus air a little bit over the weekend, but the things that matters at 11 on 11. The things that matter is who commands the offense the best in that scrimmage on Saturday. Is there going to be some separation this week amongst the three quarterbacks with real football, full padded practice?
I got some news. I got a news flash for everybody. There's been sloppiness and routes on air for the last number of years. Like, this isn't like a new thing. I mean, how many times have we all talked about receivers or receiver quarterbacks or whatever, like during fall camp? Because we see such a small amount, and so you put a microscope on what you do see and try to figure it out. It's like the whole blurred out thing, right? You're just trying to find something, trying to figure something out. But the quarterbacks, I don't think you'll see a ton of separation this week because you're going to have the scrimmage on Saturday, but you're going to have a lot of 11 on 11 scrimmage work all throughout practice throughout the week. Saturday is just a scrimmage. Like, there's no individual periods. You just you go out there, you warm up, and you go. Even in situational stuff. So I think it's a big week, but I don't think this is the end-all, be-all for the quarterback competition. I think this thing will go into the following weekend, and at that point, I think you'll start to see real separation.
Could they separate two from the pack, maybe?
Sure, absolutely. Okay. My biggest question is what kind of reps does Georgia McIntyre get? Is he getting reps with actual real ones and twos, or is he only getting reps with kind of the threes and fours? Because I think that matters, right? I don't think that in the spring, until Nico departed and he played in the spring game, George threw it to a lot of players that were on scholarship. I think he threw it to a lot of walk-ons. So, what does the divvy up of reps look like? This past week, this current week, and then into next week.
I don't think anybody wins the job this week, but I do think this is the first week of separation, that you can start to separate yourself. I think somebody can take the lead this week. I don't think anybody could take the lead last week. It was installs. It was no pads. You were dividing everything up equally. I think you can go into Sunday morning staff meeting and review the whole week. And I think you can have in your head, somebody's my leader at quarterback. Somebody has emerged out front. Now, can they hold on to it? I'm not saying it's decided this week, but I do think separation and evaluation can be created this week, where I don't think that was the case in week one. I don't think that was ever going to be the case in week one. I do think that's a possibility this week. I think the other thing I'm interested in here, and we sort of joke about some of this stuff sometimes, but we've seen, obviously, walk-ons like Will Brooks be a factor. Kelsey Pope meets the media on Friday, and the question is, does he have anybody outside of a scholarship guy who could be a contributor? I'm not saying a starter, but who could be in a rotation? That's a real question now, because when you look at where they are with a tweaked hamstring here or sprained ankle there, they may have to count on somebody that is not on scholarship, that doesn't have a big resume, that doesn't have a bunch of stars coming out of high school. Is there a guy on this roster who could help them in a pinch in that role? Or what is your answer if you get depleted at the receiver position? Are you moving Ethan Davis? All joking aside, are you sliding Deshaun Brame out? What are you doing at the receiver spot if suddenly 6 or 7 guys become 4 guys? What is the answer? I'll be curious to see what Kelsey Pope has to say about that on Friday.
That's my question, Austin. Like, and again, you hope you're not in this situation, but football is a contact sport. Guys are going to miss practices. Guys are going to miss parts of game. Say you're down 2-3 wide receivers. Again, we joke about it, but what's the hurt in putting Deshaun Brame or Ethan Davis out there in the slot and, running true personnel, but just flexing that second tight end out? I don't know. I mean, maybe that's something they look into.
You'll absolutely see multiple tight end sets this year. I mean, we saw them last year. You were going to see them again this year, but I think they could be more prevalent than maybe they even anticipated because of this discussion alone.
The year of 14 personnel? Would that be 14 personnel? One running back, 4 tight ends?
I mean, I think it's what's interesting is there someone who, for lack of a better word, could be serviceable as a wide receiver who's not one of your signees? We haven't seen that much at Tennessee, but could there be one of those emerge?
Also makes you wonder why Dayton Sneed left. Because, I mean, obviously I think he would have an opportunity with this current lineup to potentially play. But he left and went to North Carolina, and we'll see what kind of shot he gets over there. Is Weary a factor? It certainly does not feel like Amari Jefferson's going to be a factor at right now. And then, so what happens right there? Joakim Dodson's a late arriver, and how quickly can he come up to speed? I know he's had the playbook and been going through it and all that for months, but there's a difference between looking over the playbook and actually running through things. So how quickly can he ascend?
Good thing for Trey Weary, I think it was back in the spring. I believe it was David Hobbs, and I don't know how it was asked. Somebody asked who would be on your, 5-on-5 basketball team for Tennessee football, and everybody said Trey Weary would be the point guard. So there's some dual threat there, some athleticism. Defensively, when we're out there, we can't really take anything away. It's literally just drill work. But does it help? And again, Grant, you never obviously want anybody to miss practice, but I think I heard Austin say this the other day. Like, Joshua Josephs has missed a couple practices here lately. That means more reps, more work for Caleb Herring, who's got to take a step, for Jordan Ross, who has got to take a step. That's not a bad thing for those two guys to be getting even more reps, because you already know what Joshua Josephs can do and handle.
Yes, it's the difference in a known commodity and a relatively unknown commodity. And you know what you're going to get out of Joshua Josephs. You've seen it on tape. You've seen it multiple seasons. You got to have those other guys behind him, around him, whatever, that are going to be able to step up. So no, I don't think it's a concern numbers wise, depth wise, anything like that. Like we're talking about with receivers, you know what you get with one guy. You don't know what you get with the other guys. Let's see what you got and how many reps you get. If you can, you can't get enough reps in August. It doesn't matter who you are, but if you've been there and you've done that, it's a different story. When you're trying to prove yourself and take that step that you're talking about, this is the time of year to do it.
The defensive line is going to be, once again, a big rotation. Needs to be one of the leading forces for Tennessee. We met with a number of those guys the other day. I think Tyree Weathersby is a guy that, is this the year that's going to hit, Austin? Like, he had so much potential coming in, at the prep level, got hurt. He was going to play, right? I mean, he was going to play as a true freshman, got hurt in that fall camp. Last year, just trying to figure it out a little bit. Looking for a big step from him, consistency from Tyree West. Dave, we talk about the defensive tackles all the time. It looks like Jamal Wallace and Nathan Robinson are practicing and going, and that's huge. I mean, Nathan Robinson certainly will play if he can stay healthy. Where does that put Isaiah Campbell, Ethan Utley? Defensive line's intriguing for me because a lot of guys are going to play, obviously, but it's kind of, who fits best where and kind of what's that rotation look like midseason.
Yeah, I think Weathersby was certainly going to play 2 years ago. Then he cracked the hip, and then last year just was buried. I mean, he was just buried behind so many older players. And I do think that, when Jason Jenkins and some of those guys left, his ears perked up. It was go time. He's had a great offseason. We'll see how he translates that into performing once the season gets here. But, yeah, I mean, that defensive line is still really, really deep. And it's like I said the other day on the radio, like, they're not 20 deep, but they're still 15, right? I mean, it's not like that they went all of a sudden and they're just like rail thin at the position. I'm interested to kind of see how some of these players produce, right? You've seen some leadership qualities out of Tyree West. You've seen leadership qualities out of Josh Josephs or whoever else. But how do they perform now that they are the guys on this team, like the older classmen, the leaders? You know what you're going to get out of Don Bailey and Bryson Eason. But for Rodney Garner, he's trying to find that next group that will take him past this year's graduating class into next year and so on and so forth. So I know he's wanting to see Ethan Utley, wanting to see Isaiah Campbell, wanting to see some of those younger defensive linemen really take a big step. And what can Nathan Robinson give this team? Again, everybody talks about him passing the eye test, and he certainly does. Can he stay healthy for a change? Do they wrap him in bubble wrap enough in fall camp to where he gets to the field this fall and actually, plays meaningful snaps as a Shane Burton lookalike?
And a tight end, remember, that was a big role for him the other was it last year? Yeah, it was last year.
I think the other question too is where is Josh Snell?
Yeah.
In this. I mean, that's a guy they went and got from Grand Valley State who was super productive. He's obviously got confidence in himself, believes in himself. You could tell that in the interview that he did. Where does Rodney Garner think that he is? Where does he factor? Suddenly you look up and you go, okay, I see 7 tackles. Well, they're not going to play all 7 of them. So what is that? Maybe 8 tackles. You know who the top 3 are, right? I think we're pretty clear on who the top 3 are. But then what does it look like with Robinson, Snell, Utley, Campbell, Wallace? I mean, that's 5 guys right there. That takes you to 8 guys. They're not going to play 8. So which one of those guys can help you? Which one of those guys can't help you? Do you feel like you're better in pass rush situations if you slide somebody inside from strong side defensive end? That changes your rotation a little bit. I got a feeling Rodney Garner's not going to like anybody on Wednesday. I think that's going to kind of be his deal on Wednesdays. He's going to like Jackson Moy and Eason and everybody else is going to be a big sack of potatoes that we'll see if any of them can play well enough for him. Because I think that's going to be his play with those guys who are all trying to carve out a role for themselves.
And as it always works out, since it's his day to meet with the media, he's going to be about 25 minutes late because that's the day they're going to be out there running after practice.
Isn't that Rodney's kind of default mode, though? He's not
I mean, it's one of those deals like we were talking to Grant the other day. I mean, we were all dumbfounded, or a little bit dumbfounded. Rick Barnes called his summer off season a 10, right?
Right.
Because what does Rick Barnes always say? They're not good enough defensively. This guy's not good enough. This guy's not doing this. I mean, his default mechanism is more. So it would be a surprise if Rodney Garner gives glowing remarks. He was more positive in the spring than Rodney's been since he's been here about guys individually. I'm not sure that's where he'll be when you're 4 days away from your first scrimmage and you've just had your first good day in pad.
It was Chop who was kind of the Debbie Downer there in the spring.
He was, yeah, a little bit. And Chop's going to talk on Wednesday too, so we'll see where he's at with some of his guys.
We watched basketball practice last week. They blurred out Nate Ament the whole time in person. It's a joke. Where's my laugh track?
Where's the laugh track? Please, I need some help here. AP, Brent, any young, and again, we're going to learn more as camp goes on. The pads just came on, but any talk about some of these young DBs? Ty Redmond's a name I've heard a couple of times. I mean, I think from just the look standpoint, athletically, his length, man, if you can play corner on a lockdown with that length, man, you love that. Any of these other young defensive backs kind of making some noise here to begin fall camp?
Well, I think they like their length. I think they like their athleticism. I think for as much as we talk about a scrimmage setting being important for the quarterbacks, it's probably most important for the DB, or just as important for the DBs on Saturday. Because even when they're doing 11 on 11 on the practice field, I'm like Willie Martinez, those guys are right. I mean, they're back there communicating as the ball is snapped. They're standing close to everybody. You get into a scrimmage, they're not going to be there. They're not going to be able to run out in the middle of the field and communicate with guys because they don't treat it that way. So I think Saturday for those young guys is important. Who adapts, who adjusts on the fly, who doesn't bust, who doesn't look lost because they're not being spoon-fed everything snap, between every snap. So I think we'll see. I think athletically, AP, that they like everything about that group that they brought in. Now, who's a corner, who's a star, who's a safety, I think is still in flux. But from an athletic standpoint, I think they like that group a lot from Merritt to Dylan Lewis to Ty Redmond all the way through.
Yeah, absolutely. And they like the versatility of the group, right? I mean, they've got guys that can play some nickel, play some safety, play corner, play nickel. Redmond's, the locked-in corner out of that group. Everybody else can kind of move around, but they do like Tim Merritt a lot. Dylan Lewis is flashed. And, so we'll see, kind of where things go. But, I mean, I'm with you. Like, it's kind of like until McCoy gets back, you're going to have to rely on a guy like Ty Redmond. And that'll serve him well in the future. It just puts you on a little bit on an island with a true freshman out there in meaningful snaps early in the season. But again, do they feel like he can swim? If they feel like he can swim, he's certainly going to play.
Last thing before we shift gears a little bit to recruiting towards the end of the show here. On that note, McCoy is obviously not practicing right now. Boo Carter is not practicing right now with his team outside of doing some things at the very beginning. It looks like Jalen McMurray is kind of your star right now. Who else is kind of looking like can help at the star position? I think Dylan Lewis is somebody you mentioned. Marcus Gorey is another guy. And Colton Hood looks like he's, fitted in there nicely at a cornerback. And Brent, that makes a whole lot of sense, right? Because he's played corner at the power 4 level. McMurray has experience at the star position at his previous stop as well. That looks like where people are right now. And then when McCoy's back in the fold, it'll be interesting. Is McMurray, coming back to corner? Can they put Colton Hood out at star? I mean, we don't have the answer to that right now, but it does make it intriguing whenever he does come back. But it looks like that's kind of where they're starting right now. McMurray at star, Hood at corner.
Yeah, I mean, I think probably Caleb Beasley is going to get some star stuff there just to be up to speed, because I don't know if you're ready to turn that over to a first-year player who's been on campus for a month. You get into the Dome and Mercedes-Benz Dome, and McMurray's got to come out for a series for some reason. Are you ready to put a freshman back there, or do you roll Beasley over there? Probably Beasley makes the most sense at this point, but we'll see. We'll see how that ultimately ends up playing out. And I do think it'll be interesting to see what this secondary looks like when McCoy gets healthy. We don't know when that's going to be. I don't think Colton Hood has done anything to disappoint anybody. And I know there's the one clip and the blurt out and the interception and all that, but I just the buzz you hear people talking about it, I won't say it's McCoy like from a year ago, because everybody last year was like, man, we stole one in Jermod McCoy. Like we got a dude. I don't know that anybody's putting it at that level, but there is a lot of people who, man, that guy he was a blessing to find late in the transfer window, in the spring window, because one, we needed depth, but two, he can play. I mean, he understands what he's doing in this league. So there's a lot of confidence with what they've got in Colton Hood. That's as big of a transfer get outside of Joey Aguilar potentially. That's as big of a transfer get as Tennessee got. I mean, think about it. I mean, that's a topic to discuss. I mean, who's more important? All right, we're going to take Aguilar, right? Because you think he may be the quarterback. Then you got Colton Hood. Then you got Wendell Moy. I mean, those are guys that were pretty good wins, it looks like, for Tennessee in the transfer portal. Pendleton in there as well, probably going to be a starter.
This is the larger discussion that we don't have to have today, but I mean, Tennessee football in the transfer portal in general. I mean, just think of the win. Think the last cycle. You found McCoy, you found Kitselman. I mean, Tennessee in the transfer portal in general has been really good, but yeah, Hood, Moy, massive. Yeah, you hope wins for Tennessee. It looks like it's going to be that. And, of course, Joey Aguilar could be the starting quarterback.
Well, you want plug-and-play guys, right, AP? I mean, if you go to the portal, you want a guy who's a plug-and-play, who can step right in and play quickly. That's why you're bringing him in. Tennessee's hit on more of those than they haven't. They haven't been perfect, but they've hit on a good number of those, and it looks like they've hit on a couple this year.
Yeah, they probably stumbled into one or two. And I don't even McCoy, I mean, yes, they you used the perfect word, stole one, right? Like they didn't stumble upon him. They were planning on him being a starter when they took him. Kitselman wasn't thought of in that realm, right? He was more of a body, and then he ends up being this, like, just never given a chance, unproven guy who went out and just said, I'm going to take it. But yeah, I mean, for a team that doesn't live in the portal and they just kind of dabble, which frustrates the fans because everybody wants to live in the flashy object portal. They've done a nice job of hitting on more than they've missed on.
When Kitselman committed, I saw AP report it, and I looked up who he was and where he came from in his stats, and I thought, oh, this is nothing. Like, this is not going to factor. This is just a body. Nope, false, wrong.
Correct. I mean, like, the kid tweeted it out, and like nobody was following him, so then no one knew. And I was on the
Wasn't
way.
it late night, like a late Friday
Late
night?
night. I was coming home from Wicked, maybe. There was some show at the Tennessee Theater my wife drugged me to, and I called Ty Simpson. Ty, I need this kid's number. Ty gave it to me. I was on the phone with Kitselman and had the thing written, in a matter of moments, and there she goes.
Well,
I
I don't.
didn't think anything about it because
From a show that AP willingly went to, and he loved every minute of it. Just in case your wife is listening, he didn't really mean drugging.
It wasn't a Disney play.
Oh my God!
It wasn't a Disney play there, Graham.
I've seen none of them.
Stunned, shocked.
And we're all stunned. I don't think the people on campus in the program thought they were getting what they were getting with Kitselman. He was just an extra depth body, is what that one was. Who's turned into a guy who's
a leader.
I think he's going to play in the National Football League. I mean, I think I do. I think he's going to have enough skill set and doing different things that he's going to be an NFL tight end. That's going to be a good player. I think somebody in the league is really going to like him the more and more they look at his film and everything else. So,
and that's not even touching on who he is off the field and the leader he is and the voice he is. And I mean, the little bit of practice we get to watch, we've seen him coaching up the younger tight ends and all that stuff. Like that's on top of what he does on the field.
Yeah, I mean, and I'm glad he got this extra year, because before he had that extra year, we taped Ball Club Confidential last year, which is now going to be known as Beyond the Orange, by the way, for all those people out there. He told me the story about, like, they put him in the game on special teams at Alabama for like 3 plays, and that was 1 year of eligibility. And he didn't want to go in. Saban threw him in, and then he said Saban came back to him after the fact and was like, "I thought you were a senior." Saban didn't even know how old he was. He goes, "I thought you were a senior. I apologize. I would never have wasted your eligibility like that had I known." And like, he gave this great story about it. And I mean, he's never really told the story. I'm kind of half telling it here. But I mean, like, I was glad to see him get the extra year of eligibility, because he's still, even last year when he was playing, he was only 21 at the time and just turned 22. So it's not like he's like ancient, right? Like he's not like an ancient player, like, Aguilar is, who's 24.
And the special teams you're talking about, like PAT field goal, right? Like, it wasn't even like, it probably wasn't even like kickoff team or something like that. It was probably just something annoying like a PAT team. Sorry, Brent.
Yeah.
What were you saying?
Well, I was just going to say, I mean, he even talked about it at SEC Media Days about how he didn't have a ton of confidence to start last year. He was questioning whether he could play. I mean, we're sitting here talking about Tennessee didn't know what they had. He didn't know what he had. He didn't know who he was, because he had not played and had not been given an opportunity to play because of people in front of him in Alabama. He wondered if he belonged. And as the year went along, he certainly figured out he did, had a nice year, and he has taken this extra year and run with it, Grant, as you mentioned, as a leader on and off the field. He's obviously a smart guy. He's bought some property in Knoxville. He's flipping a house and using his NIL money to try to build, some financial stability that way. I mean, he is kind of made the way you want a leader to be made on and off the field. And you hope that he stays healthy, and he's got a chance to be a really, really key part of Tennessee, both in production and in leadership as well. He's important.
If he wasn't confident entering the 24 season, I bet he was plenty confident leaving Charlotte after that North Carolina State game. I bet he was plenty confident.
Yeah, I would say he probably floated back to Knoxville pretty quickly on that deal. He was like, "All right, let's go do this. I can play."
Should have had another touchdown too.
Yeah, he was feeling himself pretty good after Nico decided to leave when he addressed the team. Like that, that's who that guy is. Like he you want to know why guys didn't bolt out of here or whatever? He's a big reason. He's a big leader and pulled everybody together, rallied the troops, and he's without question the vocal leader on the offensive side of the ball.
And I think he'll remain that way regardless of who the quarterback is.
Yes.
I don't think it's going to be like there's a passing of the baton when a quarterback is named and the quarterback just automatically becomes the alpha male of that offense. I think he's going to be very, very vocal all season long, regardless of who the quarterback is for Tennessee.
Now, Colton Hood, no pressure. Tennessee just needs you to be Miles Kitselman / Jermon McCoy kind of portal find. No pressure though.
No pressure. But they need him to make an impact for sure. I mean, he's going to have to play early for McCoy, and then you hope that he's good enough that he can, play in multiple ways for Tennessee in the secondary this fall. And the good news for him is he's got multiple years, AP, right? I mean, this is a guy that you hope that you can sort of build your secondary around a little bit.
Just a redshirt sophomore. So, I mean, technically he could go to the draft after this year if he had a good year, but, he very well could end up being back here next year for what would only be his 4th year of college.
And he could be the dude when he comes back next year, depending on what Ricky Gibson wants to do. I mean, it still would be a dude anyway, but like he could be, one of the main guys for sure. Let's shift gears here. Also, kind of where are we in recruiting now? 22 commits. You had Sneed the decommitted, so you're at 23. Now you're at 22. Had a pair of athletes commit to the program here recently. Moa, of course, a big win last week, and Joel Wyatt a couple days before that. 2 heavy hitters still out there, Savion Hyder, Tristan Keys. Tristan Keys, of course, committed to LSU. Will he flip? Will he decommit? Kind of where's Tennessee with those 2 guys and, Darius Gray and some other guys as they try to round out this class?
Yeah, it's very, very small, right? That Darius Gray, Tennessee to me is not a factor there. I mean, they're still talking to him about it. This does not feel like Tennessee to me. Hyder, obviously we know his date. It's coming up in about 2 weeks, and we'll see kind of where things go from there. It's Tennessee, it's Michigan. Not much has changed there, and he plays everything close to the vest. So anybody out there, pushing the intel, I'd be skeptical of it, even myself. I mean, he does not talk, and so you're really relying on others, which is always hard. So Tennessee feels like they continue to be in a really solid spot there. They know Michigan's their main competition. There's really nobody else. The other schools are really out of it at this point, and he talks to Tennessee's players a decent amount, and he's in the midst of getting ready for the start of his high school football season, and they as a family are working towards a decision right now. I do not think anybody's been told. I do not think that a decision has been reached. I think this week was kind of a week where he's trying to narrow that down and start really getting that done.
What about Tristan Keys?
As for Keys, sorry, I should have just transitioned there. I was afraid everybody was starting to hear me talk anyway. As for Keys, still committed to LSU. I really don't see him decommitting. Like I just see it. He's either going to stick with LSU or he's just going to flip. And so that's why I keep saying, like, I'm looking at the next few weeks ahead. Like, what happens? Does he take visits early in the season? Does it, is there anything that that causes him to take more than 1 or 2, or is it just kind of focused in on the couple? Tennessee, Texas A&M. It certainly feels like Tennessee's got a ton of momentum here right now with him. He has relationships date back as long as anybody, right? I mean, he has a great relationship with Kelsey Pope. He has a really good relationship with Faison Brandon, and so he's very comfortable at Tennessee. Can Tennessee push this one over the edge? Can they get this one done? And that's what I'm really looking for right now is, what does Tennessee do over the next week or two to when you're kind of still in that dead period before he can take visits, to really show well. Because I think this is an important month for him based off the fact that, like, it's still dead. He can't go take visits anywhere. But I think it's important to stay on top of him, to keep the communication going all the time, because you want to recruit him like you could have him to campus this weekend, even though you can't.
You mentioned Kelsey Pope. We're on the middle of that one, obviously. Kelsey Pope's had a pretty good run here the last 2 cycles, right?
He's had a fantastic run. I mean, you look at last year's class with Redarius Jackson, Travis Smith, Joakim Dodson. And then, this year's class, has been fantastic as well with Legend Bay and Celeste Moa, and then obviously Tyree King, who everybody loves to forget Tyree King. I'm not so sure he's not, the best, if not, right at the top for any of these receivers that are committed. I mean, he's really, really talented. People take him for granted because he's from Knoxville. But, I mean, Tyree King could literally go anywhere in the country, and Tennessee did a good job of locking him down early. He's a hometown kid who loves the orange and wanted to stay home. And so you don't sleep on Tyree King. I think that kid's got some special in him.
You forgot the percentages, AP. Percentages.
Percentages on what? Which
On
one?
the two players you talked about.
On the two uncommitted players.
Well,
We need three decimal
I
places.
said 58% the other day in the chat on
58 points.
I've just felt like Tennessee. I get, the Michigan side feels confident, but there's just something about this recruitment that just seems familiar to me. It just seems familiar. It feels like David Sanders from a year ago, where the kid wanted to wait until he got in school. Now, you could argue that Tennessee was the perceived leader there, but see, I would argue with you and tell you that no. I mean, how many people from Ohio State had him pegged to go to Ohio State back in May and June, before he eventually committed to Tennessee in August? So, I don't know. It's by no means a lock. This kid does not talk. So again, you take everything with a grain of salt, but at the same time, it just feels in the gut familiar to me. And then Tristan Keys, I don't know. I think his chances of flipping are better than 50%. And I think between Tennessee and Texas A&M, I would take Tennessee at this current moment because I think his relationships are deeper and tighter in Knoxville. So, we'll see. Again, LSU's done everything they can to keep him into the boat at this point, because there's been a number of times over the May and June and July that there was chatter that he was going to decommit, and he never has. And so, can they continue to hold on to him for the next several months? I think that's a tough road, but it's certainly possible.
It's not familiar. You got to quote Butch. It's familiarity.
Familiarity.
Great familiarity.
As we say goodbye here on the Volquest podcast, last thing I want to hit out the door, Grant Ramey, in a shocking turn of events, Joel Klatt does not have Tennessee ranked inside his preseason top 25. Okay. Brett McMurphy does, though. Brett McMurphy has Tennessee at number 19 going into the season. Of course, everybody has their own ranking system, and of course, everybody's got the preseason rankings. Which one seems more accurate for Tennessee football, Grant Ramey? Tennessee unranked to begin the season, or Tennessee at number 19?
Tennessee ranked and closer to 25 than the top 10. I think that's about right. I think ESPN, I don't know when the last time ESPN updated their way too early top 25, but they had Tennessee in there in the teens when Nico was here, and then Nico left and they dropped him out of the top 25 altogether. So I don't think they start the season unranked. I think 19th is pretty accurate. I think that's kind of where that'll be when the AP poll does come out preseason and the coaches poll and all that stuff. I would be surprised if they're completely unranked and everybody's just written them off because of the Nico stuff in back in April. But at the same time, that's the national perception. They're probably not, paying attention to the day by day and, clued into what this team is. That's just what you do as a voter. You try to go by all the, the national perspective on teams, and maybe they think that's an unranked thing.
And I get it. I mean, if I'm an outsider looking in, I'm looking at the Tennessee offense. I'm like, oh my gosh, what's going to happen here? Like, there's questions. I understand all that. That's all fair. I read that article you put out, and I went to the ESPN article about the matchup predictor and who's got the best odds to make the CFP. And Heather Dinich has all these paragraphs where she contradicts herself a little bit as well. She has all these paragraphs about Tennessee, and not one time did she mention the Tennessee defense. I mean, I know we're 2025, but come on here. It's still half the game.
That's the funny thing. The ESPN analytics like Tennessee a lot. I mean, like borderline top 10 team in terms of, their football power index and the SV plus and all this, the different stuff that they have that is, analytics and computer based, but then the actual, writer putting together a top 25 doesn't have Tennessee in the top 25. So there's a very big difference of opinion in terms of what they see computer wise and what you see human wise.
All right, I want to ask this question. This is my mailbag question for the week. Give me on a national scene, and I love Brett McMurphy. I think he does a great job, and I really enjoyed his top 25 because he broke it down and just didn't mention teams. Mm-hmm. But when you look at this, give me outside of Tennessee, who do you buy stock in? Who do you think is overrated that you're not buying stock in to start this year? So, I look at Clemson. Clemson's bringing all this back. Are you buying Cade at quarterback? Are you not buying that one? Are you buying Carson Beck at Miami, and they've got this improved defense? They're at some people's top 10. Who do you think is who's the team that's going to rise that belongs, and maybe who's going to end up being the team that you went, How were they ranked that high in the preseason?
I'll tell you who I'm buying stock in, and it's completely different from this time last year. I'm buying stock in LSU. I mean, they bring back so much production. I mean, it's incredible. Wide receiver, running back. In my opinion, the best quarterback in the SEC. The defense arguably has the best linebacker, two of the best linebackers in the country. LSU at 10. LSU preseason picked 4th in the SEC behind Alabama. I think that's a little bit underrated. So, Grant, I would buy stock in LSU. I think that they're a bit underrated in these rankings.
I would probably sell on Penn State just because of how highly Penn State is ranked in some of this stuff and how highly they're regarded. I mean, they're number 1 in some. I think maybe it was ESPN's Way Too Early Top 25 that had Penn State at number 1. I think they've been number 2 in a lot of stuff. It seems like consensus top 3, and they probably got a ton of talent and all that stuff, but it's something where you just kind of got to see it to believe it because they've struggled to. They've been very good, obviously, under James Franklin and very relevant in the playoff team and all this stuff, but they haven't, won the big one and been that next level elite. So I would probably sell there. I think I agree. I would sell on Clemson just because, again, I kind of need to see it there with that group. I don't really know who. I would probably buy into Tennessee just because of it feels like this group is better when nobody's really buying into them. And people see that James Pierce is gone and Dylan Sampson's gone and Nico's gone and try to figure out what this team's going to be. I would probably buy stock there.
Maybe sell Notre Dame, maybe just because they got a freshman quarterback.
Yeah, maybe. I like Jeremiah Love a lot. Obviously, probably one of the best running backs in the game, so that's a big deal.
I mean, I'm not selling Ohio State because obviously I like the supporting cast there.
2 new coordinators at Ohio State. That'll be interesting to see what happens with the Buckeyes. Jim Knowles is now at Penn State. Mm-hmm. And by the way, I mean, Penn State had that treacherous road to close the year, which really cost them in the playoffs because, I mean, they had to go play at Purdue, and they had Southern Cal, which, that's other teams in the playoffs didn't have to play that treacherous schedule.
Yeah.
Listen, I like James Franklin. I like what he did at Vanderbilt. He's obviously a good coach, but that one was like, come on, man. Nobody's buying. Now, if you want to say the Minnesota game that you won 25-24, that one had an effect on you, maybe. But a 49-14 win over Purdue did not wear you out for your playoff run. So
he set the bar high, but there's still another level to get to that he has to get to.
Yeah, and Knowles may be a big difference for them at defensive coordinator. Be curious to see how that adjustment works. He's been successful everywhere he's been. On the flip side, at Ohio State, I mean, Chip Kelly got hot with his offense in the playoff, and it was the thing. So what do they look like offensively without him being the play caller? And then at Texas, Austin, can they handle the expectations? Can Sark handle the expectations, managing Arch Manning and all the hype around that and everybody they're bringing back? I mean, so many people have them a lot to be playing for the title and at the end of the playoff run. Can they manage the expectations that are in front of them with a schedule that includes a trip to Georgia on the road, and some other things? I mean, you can lose a game and still get in. I'm not saying that, but how does that team handle expectations? How does Sark handle expectations this year?
Yeah, there's some teams in the SEC. I don't know if I'd sell stock in them. I'm not sure I'm buying it either, though. Like Alabama, Ty's got to prove he can do it. Everybody just assumes because they've got Grubb as the offensive coordinator now that it's going to be like Washington a couple of years ago, and they'll just, I got to see that. I think Alabama will be good, but are they top 5 good? Or is there still those hiccup games like they had a year ago in the first year without Nick? Georgia, I've got to see Gunnar Stockton do it all year long. I have a tough time believing that they can just kind of play good hard-nosed defense and run the ball and, cherry pick a few deep balls with Gunnar Stockton and, not have hiccups. There's nothing about him to this point last year or even when he got some playing time the year before to close out the year in the Orange Bowl that makes me go, oh, wow. There's nothing about it. I mean, he's very average, with their quarterback play. So I want to see that. And then, I actually would buy stock in Clemson because I just think the ACC is not very good.
Well, that's where I was going next is like, we'll see what they do as a playoff team, assuming that they're there. But, I mean, who is their challenge in the ACC? I mean, who's on the –
Louisville this year, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, who's coming up in that league? I I don't know. That'll be interesting. And I think the other part of this in the SEC that makes this year so unique, Grant, is look. I mean, Arch Manning is supposedly really good, right? We all believe he's going to be really good. Now, they didn't play him in the playoff, which was kind of a head scratcher. But everybody says he's going to do things that they haven't been able to do there at quarterback. Nussmeier's proven. And then the question is, what is DJ Lagway in year 2? What is Norris? Lascella, I can't even say his name. Norris the Norris Sellers at South Carolina. What is he in year 2? And then everybody else at the quarterback position is kind of like, what do we have? I mean, no offense to Diego Pavia, we know what he is, but he doesn't have a cast around him that's going to give him what you really want. But everybody else in the league is kind of figuring out who they are at quarterback, which is going to make
interesting you say that. I'm sorry to cut you off. I know you're going to Grant, but Grant, answer this as well. I know we got to go, but like everybody talks about, the big ones at the top, the Georgias, the Alabamas, the Texas, and then, the LSUs, and then, even South Carolinas and the Tennessees and the Floridas, the Oklahomas, and everybody forgets about Texas A&M. But one of those quarterbacks, and Marcel Reed, who just keeps, winning ball games. I know they had a bad finish last year. They returned 15 starters. But Marcel Reed's kind of one of those other experienced quarterbacks in this league that, in my opinion, has been much better than what I thought he was going to be, and I'm happy for him. What about Marcel Reed and Texas A&M? Nobody talks about A&M.
Yeah, it's interesting because it's like a changing of the guard at quarterback at the programs that are usually at the top of the SEC standings, at Georgia, at Texas, at Alabama. I mean, it's not a lack of talent at that position or a lack of talent around them, so you'd expect good things, but you got to see it at some point to know what you have there on the field on Saturdays. And then some of the teams that have been down the standings the last couple of years, the Floridas, the South Carolinas, the Texas A&Ms, or I guess the middle of the table, I should say, in the SEC, they have a little bit more experience there returning. That's what makes it interesting is what do those teams look like? What's the cast look like around those guys that you do have coming back that do have some experience and have some track record? And how do those guys, the new guys at the top of the standings, how do they perform early on in the season?
A lot going on right now. Tennessee football entering week number 2 of fall camp. We got the coverage for you every single day right here at Volquest.com on the Journal's Quarters. We have highlights. We got practice observations. We got notes on the board. We got podcasts. We got photo galleries. We got all this and more as Tennessee football tries to answer some big questions. Will this be separation week for not only quarterback, but for some other position groups as well? Full padded practices, scrimmage coming up on Saturday. We will see, and we'll talk about it all right here at Volquest.com. Appreciate you guys for being here with us, joining us here on today's show. Get those mailbag questions in for Thursday's show, and we'll talk to you again later on the day on the Journal's Quarters. This is the Volquest Podcast.